the point that you were talking about in terms of the way my office was created. I designed it that way to create, first of all, a centering space, but also to make myself accessible to my spiritual community. So even if they didn't have an appointment and I had some space,
right,
they could see that I'm there. And if I was in an appointment, people could see that he's busy. I can wave at my people as they pass by or what have you, and they could make appointments accordingly. Or if I'm free, I'm there for my congregation. As far as the board selection, it is totally a process. It's a very well-defined process that is done through nominations and elections.
wow.
So it's not, yeah, I think you're the best. You should be on the board. I may feel that way, but I put them forth before the community. They give speeches, they've got applications, they go through interviews. It's a very rigorous process, and that it predates me at Unity of Sacramento. I think it's a best practice because there you have them not just there to please me, but they are there in service to the community that they come from. And that's been very useful over time.
Thank you. So I say my last two questions. So I heard you say that you are a prophetic spiritual leader. Can you delve into that a little deeper? What do you mean by that?
To be prophetic is really what the best way to stick with where we've been coming from is one who provides sight to the blind. One who provides vision to a blind society. One who can vision cast from the Spirit. This is why the greatest speech, you know, in the 20th century was the I Have a Dream speech, because Dr. King spoke prophetically about the human condition, of what we can be, even in the face of what we were not. And to be able to cast that in a way that people can hang their hats on a possibility. The opposite is also true. The voice of the prophetic also warns the people about a world that is coming if we do not shift our behavior. Very recently, I got a download from Spirit, and I spoke particularly to my white brothers and sisters. And I said to them in substance, if you do not talk to your people about killing our people, then those people who are willing to talk to you about racial healing and reconciliation may stop talking to you. And those people who do not want to talk to you will start taking matters into their own hands. And I spoke that 2 to 3 weeks before the George Floyd incident. So when I'm speaking of prophetic, the prophetic is one who holds visionary license from the Spirit to cast a future that is one that we can hold our heads up about and aspire toward, but also cast a future that could be the exact opposite if we don't change our ways. The barriers, the I Have a Dream speech, the B side of the speech is what we remember.
Right.
But the A side of the speech is what brought them to Washington.
Right.
All of the reasons why this vision could not turn out. Here's why we can't have this, because these things still exist. So when we're talking about the prophetic, it is the way that the Spirit speaks into time about who we can be and what we must do in order to get there. And so that's what I represent, and that's what others like me represent, walking particularly in the Kingian tradition. Of course, Reverend Michael would certainly be among those who would be walking in the prophetic tradition. He also is a graduate. Well, he's not a graduate, but he's an attender of Morehouse, and so he comes from this tradition with his family and so forth.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's what I mean by that.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I would say I'm more aligned with that as well in the work that I do. And everything that you've mentioned has been so helpful to somebody who's been moving through the ministerial path and also been engaged in sacred activism. And I feel like there's a mystical component, and perhaps it's that prophetic, but it's that mystical. Like, how do you define mysticism?
So,
mystical?
Of course, there is the mystical. Remember, I've used it, I've talked about it interchangeably. I've used the term principle, I've used the term spirit. We can, but the mystical realm is where prophetic imagination comes from. I've been to the mountaintop and I've looked over. And I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get to the promised land. This is a mystical statement. It's a mystical assertion. I've been to the mountaintop. Where is that mountaintop? Where is this high state of consciousness that you've been to? And I've looked over. So you have this ability to look ahead into the future. Now you're talking about a person who is speaking into a very racially polarized time in society, very violent time in society, and yet is reaching into this fourth and fifth dimensional realm, pulling down a vision. And by the way, as he states this, it is the day before his assassination. Now, to help ground and guide us in really understanding the mystics, particularly around the civil rights movement, one must acquaint themselves with the work of Howard Thurman, for certain. He was totally a mystic. And he was, while he was not an activist in the way that I am, the way we looked at Howard Thurman and looked to Howard Thurman, and people like King looked to Howard Thurman, he was the one to whom we mentally, spiritually, and emotionally retreat to for the refreshing vision and the quenching of that soul thirst so that we could go forth. Howard Thurman's spaciousness, Howard Thurman's silence, thunder. He had enough silence accumulated to power a whole movement. And so there are many ways in which you can contribute in his writings, his actual, if you've ever heard him speak, you can feel the silence. You can feel his acquaintanceship with God. You know he's visited the infinite, and he could bring that infinity into time. He was acquainted with the heavens, and he gave us a glimpse into them on the earth. This is how mysticism enters into activism, giving activists prophetic imagination, the ability to envision a world that I'm willing to put my feet toward organizing. Reverend Michael does that. He speaks from the world that is existent in the eternal realm. He speaks from that realm into time. And as you're experiencing him, you're also being pulled out of the world of polarity, racism, sexism, elitism, nihilism, homophobia, Islamophobia. You're pulled out of that world, and you're being drawn into this world that works for all. But he speaks from that consciousness, and that's his contribution. Right. So that people like myself can take that spiritual vacation and then come back to the front lines, armed with the elevated consciousness in which to move people to the next iteration of our human evolution. Yes. Yeah. So mysticism is all in it. You got to have something more than anger.
Yeah, I loved how you said that before about, you said anger and something else. I'll go back and listen to it, but you said they are not good leaders. And
No.
might be point of view. I mean, when you do this work, it allows you to see, it's like that Rumi quote, out beyond here is a field. There's no right and wrong, and I will meet you there.
Yeah. I refer to that as the third space. Third space. There's this first space of I'm right, then the second space of you're wrong. And then there's third space, where we simply are. The third space is the place and space where we all belong. The third place is this field that we build together that creates room for you and for me. This is what all of the prophets were pointing to. This is the master prayer of the master teacher. Thy kingdom come, thy will is done on earth. This is the beloved community that King and others were talking about. This is that articulation, this third space, this transcendent space where we leap from being Homo sapiens sapien to Homo universalis, this universal human. And enlightened beings are aware of this space. We're conscious of this space. It's something that we get quickened by in the process of our in the process of our spiritual evolution. We become conscious of this space, and that's really what pulls us. And I know these times do enrage us and do make us angry. And leadership at this time helps us to teach people how not to waste good anger. And we waste good anger through violence.
Mm-hmm.
We waste good anger through hate. We waste good anger through broadening the chasm. But we can employ good anger and transmute it to building the beloved community. You see?
Yes.
But that's why we need leadership like yourself. So I'm so proud that you have invested so much in yourself for your own development and for our collective freedom in society.
Thank you.
10 years.
Yeah, right?
She ready.
Yeah, she is ready. Totally. Yeah, I am. So thank you so much for this time. I have just, oh my God. I want to close with I attended one of your services in which you had, a lot of what you've shared with me, I've had God bumps, like just moving through me. And there was this beautiful ceremony where you had congregants that were standing in the pulpit, and you asked people to come up and hug them. Would they be willing to receive a hug? They had gone through a tragedy, and it was so moving to me, the way that you, first of all, held such sacred space and were delivering your message, and then you included everybody in this experience, the opportunity to give love and the opportunity to receive it. It was really beautiful.
I remember that. It's a practice of ours, which is why this time is particularly difficult, because we are literally that hugging church. I think for most of the challenges that people face and most of the world's problems that are created is because of the experience of being underloved, under-acknowledged, undervalued, and underappreciated. That we have this system of creating insiders and outsiders, insiders and outsiders. And so on our campus, our effort is to broaden the circle of inclusion, to make all insiders, no outsiders.
Wow, that is such a profound teaching, just that. Wow.
And so that's a great part of our work. You know, and we grow toward that, which means that we are looking for the one who feels outside. And as a community, how do we evolve in order to make room? And that means that we're constantly in a state of self-examination and reflection, that we're not this static thing, but we're a dynamic spiritual enterprise. So one week may not look necessarily like the last week, you know.
Well, I'm very inspired by you. I'm so grateful to connect with you, and I will be tuning in to Unity of Sacramento a lot more, so that I can just, you know, absorb and learn from you and be, you know, so beautiful. Thank you for
Thank
what
you.
you're doing. Thank you for the stand that you're taking, and for continuing to steep yourself so that you can be, you know, Rev Kev, and what you're doing with your family, the way, you know, you so openly demonstrate the love for your family and your children. You know, it's like, I see this, like, you present this like holistic view, and I hear the commitment to continual evolution. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And as you can tell, I've so enjoyed all of this precious time. And as Dr. King said, I would love to tarry with you on this mountain, but the valley calleth. I've got to get to the valley.
I get it. Thank you so
Yes.
much. I'll send you a copy of this, and
Please do.
and I would love to stay in touch with you. Thank you so much.